You've heard his name, Ed Gein, and the stories about his heinous killing sprees around Wisconsin. And you've seen the movies that are based on Gein. Titles like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Silence of the Lambs, Psycho. But there's an unsolved case that has stumped Lacrosse law enforcement for over 50 years, involving a mysterious 1940s Buick and a 15-year-old babysitter who vanished during the same time that Ed Gein was in town visiting. Hey guys, I'm Kendra Sommer, and welcome to True Crime Commute. We post a new true crime story every week on Fridays. Make sure to subscribe to our channel so you never miss any of our content. Today we're talking about the unsolved disappearance of Evelyn Hartley. This small Wisconsin town hailed a population around 35,000 back in the 1950s. It's one of those towns where everything is centered around the university, and back then it was Lacrosse State College, today the University of Lacrosse. Evelyn was an honor roll student at Central High School, good in science, selected as Wisconsin's co-president of Wisconsin Junior Academy of Science. She was very invested with her church, and she was a young woman with a bright future. So it's not surprising that she agreed to take her friend's babysitting job when asked. Her friend wanted to attend the homecoming game, and the Lacrosse homecoming game was a big deal in town. Everybody would be there, alumni would fly in, and this year's game would be Lacrosse versus River Falls. This babysitting gig was pretty straightforward. It was for Professor Ramison, and he was a professor that worked at Lacrosse school. Evelyn's father worked at the school, so they were familiar with the teacher and the family. And on the night of October 24th, 1953, she gets picked up by Professor Ramison, and they drive to the Ramison household, which was about 2 miles from Evelyn's home. And on this night, Evelyn was wearing red slacks and her red cat eye glasses. They were brand new. This style was very in vogue at the time. The Ramisons had 2 children, one that was 7 and one that was around 20 months, still a baby. The Ramisons depart the home with their older child around 6:45, leaving Evelyn and the baby alone at the home. And around 7 p.m., Evelyn's mother reports having a very powerful urge that just something wasn't right, and she felt the need to call her daughter and check in. But she brushed it off and figured that her daughter would call at the normally scheduled time of 8:30, but Evelyn never called. Now, around this time that her mother had that feeling, the next door neighbors to the Ramisons heard screaming. Now, they didn't really think much about the screaming. They thought it was just children playing outside, and they ignored it. Around 7:15, a local resident reported that he saw something odd. He saw a 1940s Buick driving fast. He saw a man in the driver's seat and a man in the back seat with a girl kind of shrugged over. He just thought it was homecoming antics and blew it off. Now, a few minutes earlier, he remembered seeing the same group. He saw the 2 men and the girl kind of sandwiched in between them. They were having to prop her up by the arms as they were walking. This man was in the area visiting his brother-in-law, who lived in the same neighborhood as the Rasmussens. Now, when Evelyn missed her scheduled call with her mother at 8:30, they decided to send the father over to check on her and make sure everything was okay. Now, the father goes over to the house, he knocks on the door, and nobody answers. And when that happened, he began to worry. He starts walking around the house, inspecting the grounds, and he finds that the basement window had been opened. From there, he immediately phones the police. And now, Lacrosse Police Chief George Long recalls the events of that evening, and he said when he initially heard that she was missing, he thought it was a boyfriend that had picked her up and taken her to a party in the country, and sadly, that was not the case at all here. Now, this call drew a large police presence. 20 officers and dogs responded. Upon entering the house, the Ramisons' 20-month-old baby was fine, but officers quickly found Evelyn's shoes in the basement and living room. Also in the living room were her glasses, and the furniture in the living room had been completely rearranged, indicating that there had been a struggle. The dogs followed her scent from the basement window all the way over to the main road. From there, it appears that she was placed in a vehicle and driven away. Now, as the dogs are following the scent, they're finding different pieces of evidence that tie back to the crime. They found a shoe print that matched the shoe print in the living room, and they found blood, 2 pools of blood. Now, the crime happened on homecoming Saturday. It will take officials until Monday to get the state's mobile crime lab in Lacrosse, and by that time, a lot of the evidence has already been tampered with. The police did not close down the crime scene, and a lot of the gawkers from around Lacrosse came out to look at the scene once they read about it in the morning paper. And the night of the crime, police had reports of screaming at Goose Island Campground, which is about 15 minutes south of Lacrosse. This report and the missing teenager were not pieced together, so it was ignored. And by that Monday, police had already started bringing in some suspects. A Lacrosse man was mistakenly arrested after his vehicle matched the car described at the crime scene. Reports say a 1940s Buick sped up as soon as police were spotted. After police ran these plates, they traced it back to the Lacrosse man. But it turns out police wrote down this license plate number wrong. The search to find Evelyn was massive. 1,000 volunteers, helicopters, the National Guard were all called to try to find her. In fact, searchers even walked the sewer system of Lacrosse in hopes to find Evelyn. They told farmers, hunters to check their land to see if there could possibly be any graves dug. And everybody was really scared at this time. People nailed up their windows and parents wouldn't let their children babysit. Over the next couple weeks, more evidence started to mysteriously show up. Police found the tennis shoes that matched the footprint left at the crime scene. They also found a denim jacket, and both of these items were stained with blood. Denim jacket was worn down in specific places, which had police thinking whoever owned this jacket and was tied to the crime must have been wearing a harness for his day job, a lineman or a window washer or someone in construction. A bloody bra and underwear were found as well, and Evelyn's mother confirmed the brand and size was that of what her daughter would wear. Now, several days have passed since the abduction, and her father makes a general plea to the public. Please bring back my daughter, dead or alive. We just want some closure for our family. And a reward is set up for information on the case. $6,000 in 1953, that's around $70,000 today. The FBI was asked to join this case, but they said it wasn't a federal matter, so they declined. And Evelyn's case is quickly picked up by the national news circuit, and soon news crews are sent out to cover the story. And as part of the search, the police department demands all vehicles be searched. Checking all cars, service operators were asked to check cars, and if a car passed, they received a sticker that said, "This car is okay." And if they didn't, they would be reported back to police. Now, a year later, the police department isn't really getting any traction on this case, so they decide to start polygraphing all high school and college-age males. They get through about 300 of these, and then the school board starts pushing back, and they end up stopping. Now, let's dive into some theories on what happened. The first is going to be serial killer Ed Gein. Now, Ed Gein was from Lacrosse, and he was actually in town that night visiting his aunt. But this theory got shut down pretty quickly because Evelyn wasn't his typical target. Gein's typical target would be women in their 50s, and Ed Gein did end up taking a polygraph several years later, and it came back that he was telling the truth. He was not involved in this. And the next theory is going to be a peeping Tom. Now, during this time, Lacrosse was facing a problem with a peeping Tom who would go and look in different windows of different women around the city. There had been cop cars stationed around different parts of Lacrosse to try to catch this guy. And one woman who actually caught the peeping Tom looking in her window saw him, and he said, "I'm going to get you." So one of the theories could have been, did he see Evelyn with the lights turned on and decide that he was actually going to go after her instead? Final theory. Back in 2004, a gentleman named Mel Williams came forward to police. He had a recording. See, back in '69, he was at a bar trying to record a band that was playing, and he accidentally picked up this conversation between two men. The conversation was between Clyde Peterson and Jake Guthair. In the conversation, the two men claimed that Evelyn was buried and murdered in Lafargue, Wisconsin. It's about an hour away from Lacrosse. Unfortunately, when Mel Williams presented this information, both of the men had passed away already, so investigating was challenging to police. After the crime, Evelyn's family relocated to Portland, Oregon in the 1970s. And Evelyn's case is still open today. If you have any information on this, please contact the Lacrosse Police Department at the number below. Also, if you have any cases that you feel need additional attention, please email them to us at this email address. And we'll see you on the next True Crime Commute.